Welcome back to Podcast Portugal. I'm your host, Justin West, and this is episode 12. Today we're talking with Daniel Montes, an agronomic engineer, bioenergy expert, and agricultural entrepreneur shaping the future of sustainable farming in Portugal. After starting in biofuels and biotech investment, Daniel returned to Portugal to work for his father's consultancy company. He now leads projects in regenerative agriculture, CO2 reduction, and water management. As a producer, he manages 40 hectares of almond orchards and advises 16 producers covering 900 hectares of almonds, nectarines, apricots, and pomegranates. We'll discuss the challenges of sustainable farming, innovation in agriculture, and the future of food production in Portugal. I'm absolutely honored today to be here in special invitation to his beautiful Mont, Daniel Montes. We're going to talk about innovation, sustainability, and the future of Portuguese agriculture. So a fascinating subject, one that's very close to my heart. And, I'm very excited about this one. So I'm gonna ask Daniel a question to start with. Just a little bit of a background on your career and what got you interested in agronomy and economics.
Thank you, and glad to be here, and glad to have you here, Justin. Well, basically, I'm a son. I'm a grandson of a farmer, and it's been in my family, working the land. And at the age of 17, I wanted to go to Lisbon, and I wanted to study. And at a certain point, it just I just got a call from the university that was in fact the motherland of the agronomists in this country, and that was the beginning. In fact, in the beginning, I was not very convinced about what kind of field in agronomics I wanted to study. In fact, the very first 2 years, they were hard because basically it's a lot of technical stuff and engineering. But then when you got a broader vision, and when you grow a little bit, you tend to see things in a different way. And at a certain point, I went to study the economics and the social part of agriculture, because I got more connected, especially with the teacher, and usually it is the way it is, because I got involved with the matter that he was telling, and it was mainly environmental economics. That's a new science. Well, basically, what we're trying to put its value, economic value, in the environmental parts, namely, well, nowadays there's a market on carbon, and we will talk a little bit later on that. But we're basically there are models, and there are specific topics that can include this side effects and good side effects of agriculture on the environment. Well, cleaning the water, or the cleaning or the air, or cleaning some specific particles that we see as harming the soil. So that could also be provided by forestry and by plants and by agriculture. Okay, we only see the bad side of it most of the times, but when we do it in the correct way, and we will talk about it later, but we can also do it in the right side. And obviously nowadays we have the tools to incorporate that, or we're trying to incorporate that in as an added value for agriculture or for forestry. And that was really interesting and really captivated me when I was in the university. So I kept going on that side. So that was basically it. But then when we talk about it, this was 25 years ago. But it was when in fact it was the Kyoto Protocol was just signed some years before, and when then things got moving a little bit regarding the climate change and the connection with the economical part, and namely also obviously with agriculture. And I got the chance to be one of the first ones to start working with biofuels in the university. And at that time, it was particularly interesting because that was a new thing. It was bubbling, and there was a lot of interest because we didn't add the electrification that we have now for in cars or um, um, so including biofuels was one of the first um, um, ways that was seen as a way to decarbonificate the economy, namely in the in the transport sector. But then this was back in 2005. There was a big problem regarding commodities. Okay, so basically, the commodities went a little bit up, the prices for geopolitical subjects, and but then also the pressure coming from the biofuel sector was also seen as an added pressure for the price for food. And back then it was in 2007, 2008, European community and some other countries, they backed a little bit on the pressure that they were putting on for the inclusion on biofuels. So
is that simply because of the space that biofuels will take up away from traditional agriculture in terms of food production?
Exactly. It was seen as a competition. Even though that in Brazil and also in the US, most of the times they're doing biofuels as a way to control the amount of wheat or the amount of maize, or in the case of Brazil, the amount of sugar cane that they have in the market. So it's also a way to control the market, and they have a side product that it's also valuable, and then they can transform. Obviously, subsidized.
So they don't have too much product, and therefore the price crashes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, but that was 25 years ago. And it was really interesting at that time. And even the carbon market, at that time, we were also talking about 100 euros a barrel of fuel. So we had also problems regarding the cost of fuel. And we were just starting to talk about the carbon markets. So that was the beginning of the carbon markets. But it's funny to see how we are today, because we've had ups and downs, and now we've been up and now we're down again, also for geopolitical subjects also. And we will see. We will see. But obviously, but the social pressure and the way that the society sees things, it definitely improved for these last 2 decades. Okay, so we know it's in the agenda. Maybe we not as the carbon markets, they are here. In fact, in Europe, they're starting to be a reality, not on the voluntary carbon markets, but the proper the markets that are regulated. Okay, so we do have now a regulated market that is working. So interesting things have been happening in the last couple of decades, but with ups and downs.
So let's get. You might need to explain to me a little bit more about what is a carbon. From my limited understanding, I believe that you can fix nitrogen or carbon or CO2 into the soil through planting trees or whatever. And then a carbon market, if you're a company like an airline and you produce a lot of CO2 emissions, you can offset your carbon emissions by doing what? I need
well,
a little bit
the main one that has been sell to us the main type of carbon sequestration. It's the planting of trees. Okay, because when we have the trees, we have the wood, and then with the certification process, we can guarantee that the wood is going to be there and the sequestration is effective for an amount of years. Okay, usually we're working at least 25 years of sequestration. But in fact, there are now new models being developed. The sequestration in the soil, it's obviously very interesting for us farmers, okay, because it's related with other good practices that we need to increase. We need to increase the organic matter sequestration in the soil, and we will come to it because we will also talk about water. So we need richer soils, and to have richer soils, we need to have bigger concentrations of organic matter. And organic matter in the soil, it's in fact carbon. Okay, so but this is a new methodology. Okay, and in fact, there's a big effort to try to put it on a way that it could be measured, and it could be traded in a way that it's clear to everyone. Okay, because there have been some greenwashing schemes around that haven't been very good for the carbon market. Okay, obviously because of schemes regarding non-transparent models that they were not sequestrating what they were saying, and that they were not implementing the right way. So obviously this is a process that this is a curve of learning. Okay, we have been dealing with new models, and there's new science on this, and we need to be clear on what the methodologies are and how is it that we're going to maintain it, and through and also verify it through a certification project. So but there are new things, and in the way we've been learning a lot. We are now doing better practices, even though that we have not been paid yet. Most of the farmers that have been implementing this type of practices, we haven't been paid yet.
So who pays? I'm trying to sort of understand.
Yeah, this is what we've been now seeing. It's a voluntary carbon market. Okay, so there is a farmer or a project developer that actually does and certify the project. You can plant, you can plant, or you can do some type of work in the soil that increases organic matter, for example, like
sheep or
no, the one of the main ones that it's been the grazing. Okay, the way that you see the specific biodiversity in the soil with the specific types of seeds, then you keep it on the soil as a permanent grazing soil. Okay, and in that way you will increase the organic matter of the soil because you rotate the animals, and you don't arrow, and you don't leave with bare soil, so you will increase the organic matter. So this increase of organic matter that you will have during those years, you will transform it in tons of CO2, and then there is a specific market that requires, if you certify it by an entity, you can then sell it to an air company. There are specific events that also buying carbon. They're buying the offsets for example, Rock in Rio. For example, there are some specific events that they buy the offsets for the events, or for the transportation, or whatever. So okay. there is a buyer and there is a seller, and in the meanwhile there is a certification entity, and it's been a voluntary market. Okay, but now this voluntary market, it's being brought to light and it has now new laws coming from the European community and also from in this case from Portugal. So there are new laws that are putting a frame on what is being done in the voluntary carbon market. Okay, so nowadays we are now putting new schemes and a new methodology so that they can approve, so that this entity, this governmental entity, can also background the type of projects and in fact give some credibility, extra credibility to the market. So this is now happening. Okay. Finally. Because it's been a long process.
Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds very complicated. I'm trying to picture it also from a company, why they would need to buy or to offset carbon. Do they get tax credits for offsetting so much carbon, or the company gets what type of benefits do they get from offsetting some of their carbon footprint?
No, nowadays it's just credibility. It's just a marketing thing. Okay. We're talking a lot about ESG compliance of the company. So ESG standing for environmental, social, and governance. It's so there are new certifications and new requirements on the markets now regarding the compliance with this ESG. Okay, so now, for example, in the financial markets and also in certain types of companies that they're in there, they have the for stock markets and all that. So for marketing purposes, they're doing their own they're buying the carbon sequestration of their activities. Okay, they're measuring it, and then they try to offset it, and then they go and buy specific projects. Okay. Most of these projects, there are not that many projects being developed in Europe. Most of them, they are being developed in Brazil, in Africa. There are a lot of projects abroad, but in Europe, this is kind of for big projects. This is kind of new. Okay, but it's really interesting. It's moving forward, and this is the roots. Also, what we're doing for carbon, it's the roots for also for biodiversity, because we will have in I don't know what is the time frame, but we'll definitely in 10 years or so we will also have the biodiversity markets and maybe water markets also for in terms of water quality kind of markets. So this is moving forward. Okay,
that's very. And from my perspective, I think also this the whole push towards having cover crops and trying not to use too much chemicals or machinery. Even in my case, I'd love to use more machinery, but it's such a small farm that I don't really have the necessary reason to do it. But it puts a lot of quality back into the soil, and I think that's a super important thing. And looking around your farm here, I notice you have a huge pomegranate plantation, and the almonds are all in blossom. It's absolutely stunning. And so you sort of left the biofuels sort of markets, and you came more into farming. Really, you came back to Portugal in many ways, and you set up a company or started working for a company called Trevo.
Yeah,
is that correct?
It is. Trevo was it's in fact the company that was founded by my father, and in fact, well, I was working with biofuels. That path took me to Arizona State, where I was working with the algae for biofuels, because at a certain time with that unsustainability that we were talking about, growing it from food crops. So I was also involved in a project for trying to grow it from algae. Okay, so Basically, I went to the Arizona State to work on an algae biofuel project. But then at a certain time, my father got sick, and that was also the time that this big project of Alqueva got settled, and it started working.
So what is Alqueva?
What is it?
What is Alqueva?
Alqueva, it's
the
the
listeners.
largest artificial dam in Western Europe. Okay,
Right.
this is a huge dam. We're talking about one of the biggest irrigation projects in Europe. And in fact, being an agronomist, I was at that time 20 something, turning 30, and having this project at home. Well, that was the time. That was a call. So I came back home, and I started with the. I was not working with it was not rocket science, the biofuels, but anyway, I turned down working on some crops that in fact were not were not from this area, but I thought they were interesting. So I started my own project for pomegranates. And I started small. I started with a 5-hectare pomegranate orchard, organic, at that time. And I was not organic because I was being romantic, okay? because in the end we need to pay our bills, and we need the equation production times price to work, okay? But at that time, I was thinking that my pomegranates, being sold in the outside markets as organic, I was getting a way bigger price, but that really didn't happen. Okay, and I also had problems with the yields. Not only because I started organic, and starting organic like 14 years ago, it was a challenge different from the one that we have today. Okay, because now we have a lot more developments in new types of organic fertilizers, even some other products that were not that were developing in the meanwhile, regarding some products that we can spray to control diseases and everything. So this pretty much experimental back then, and especially for pomegranates in this area. Well, but anyway, I started small. I started with this um, um, small farm that my father um, borrowed me for to experiment. But then 2 years later, I wanted to grow bigger, and this is obviously a problem for farmers, for young farmers. If you want to grow big, uh, you have to find your own land, because if you're in my case and many other cases of young farmers like I was at the time, you don't have the land. So if you want to get access to land, you need to, because well, I told my father that I wanted to plant more almonds, I wanted to plant pomegranates, but my father was he's also living from agriculture, and he has his own ideas and his own stuff, and most of the times it's not easy to get access to
his farm was more wheat and
yeah. It was pretty much more on cork oaks. My father, he also has Alentejo, what we call the black pig from Alentejo, the Alentejo black pig. So, well, the water coming here, it was a total change of what we had here. Okay, so now the Alqueva project, it's a huge success, but like 20 years ago, it was a big uncertainty. Okay,
so it's simply that water being able to be supplied consistently to this area changed the opportunities of what you could plant.
It changed everything.
Wow.
Okay, so basically, we economically speaking, when we have an hectare of area that can be irrigated, you multiply by 10 the profits. Okay, so it's way different. So it totally changed the entire landscape and the entire social tissue regarding agricultural in this area. Well, but anyway, most of the people, they went to to produce olives, because well, it was mainly known here. But but my grandfather, he was an olive oil producer, and it seems to me that it was not risky enough, not different enough, so I went to pomegranate. So, but anyway, but I had to find my own land. So I bought this farm 13 years ago, and then I started with I increased the acreage for pomegranates, and also started with the almonds, because also I was coming from Arizona. I was visiting friends in California. These two crops, they were at that time they were even bigger, because pomegranates at that time they had a big explosion here in California because of the antioxidants, and then back then it was at that time it was a big rediscover of the crop. Okay, because it's in fact a very old fruit. It's one of the fruits that is it's they talk about it in the in the Bible. They talk it in the Quran. They talk it in. It's very connected also to Judaism. It's in fact a very old fruit, and for millennia that they know that the advantages of consuming it. But in fact it was in fruits, like in everything else. You also have fashionable fruits at a certain point, and then you tend to forget it. And the ones that always stay, it's the apple and the banana. Okay, so the other ones they come up and down. And so, but in fact, like 15 years ago, there was a big company in the U.S. that invested a lot of money in the marketing, and also in the science behind the power for the antioxidants of the pomegranates, and that increased the entire marketing all over the world. And that was really interesting. And in fact, most of the times when we are looking to what is in the surroundings, in the areas that we want to grow a certain crop, usually nature, or you can see what are the trees that are close by in the small farms, in the you can see, I mean, and
like
pomegranates,
like lettuce.
well, let us in fact uh, nowadays people they don't do horticulture anymore, most of the people, because back in the old days, in all the farms, we had a small portion of land where people grow legumes. Okay, they were growing their own tomatoes, they were growing their own lettuce. So, but nowadays most of the farms we don't do it. But lettuce was one of the ones that were obviously protected. You'll have to put an improvised greenhouse, but
Yeah.
there were several farmers that did it, the lettuce. But in fact, if you go to what we call here horta, the small hortas that we have in the Montes, okay, you can see the pomegranates, some citrus, some trees, and and in fact they grow there. They grow there. So all over in the Mediterranean area, we can see that the pomegranate it was developed, and it grows well. In fact, here I have a very old one. It should be more than 100 years, that tree, because it's really sick and big tree, and it's a sign. Okay, the same thing with almonds. Okay, the almonds was also not talking about the markets, but um, so 15 years ago, before the Alqueva in the Alentejo, we had like close to 500 hectares of almonds. Nowadays we have 2,500. And but if you go, and there are some roads here close by, if you go here from Beja to Serpa, you can see on the side of the roads there are some almonds there with 50, 60, 70 years. So it's there, the trees are there, and you can tell that obviously, well, it's very important. And we, the Portuguese, we were very uh, um, very playful, and we were responsible for bringing from other parts of the world the tomatoes. We brought it from South America.
Okay.
And
where are pomegranates from?
From Iran.
Oh, really?
From Persia. Yeah, in fact, the area from Persia, it's we call it there are a lot of pistachios also from there. There are a lot of tree fruits that are coming from there, but in fact, the center it's in Iran. But they were brought like before the Portuguese or the Spanish or the
also like from the Sultanate times of
yeah. They were brought by land, not by sea. Okay, so they are here for quite a long. But it was interesting. I was commenting with you when we were looking at the trees that it's been now 13 years since I've been growing the pomegranates. It's been tough, but it's challenging. But I tend to go and be very happy when I see the cycle of the tree, and it's very enthusiastic. And this is part of who grows food. I mean, seeing the whole cycle and have our own food, and getting a box of our own produced fruits to someone that usually they're polite and say they looks really good.
Yeah,
but in fact,
and worrying about the weather as well. Like
no,
and we've had so much rain. I mean, talking about water, we've had so much rain here that I'm sure. I was talking with a friend of mine who has a company in the Algarve, and he said within the last few months they've replenished more than half the water that they need in the Algarve. It suffers a lot with drought.
No, we definitely, this is definitely challenging. I mean, agriculture is, this is what it is now. We're not producing in a greenhouse, obviously technology, and we will talk about technology and its influence in agriculture. Obviously, that what we are now doing, it's permanent crops, and most of these permanent crops we will still do it outside, but we are having challenges. I mean, the water cycle, it's one of them. One of the other things that is concerning us a lot, it's the lack of chill hours. Okay, so we are having less chill hours than we used to have a couple of years ago.
So that's like the kind of agricultural zone, isn't it? I noticed. But
when we're talking about this is a Mediterranean influenced zone. It means that we have hot weather and high temperatures in the summer, and then we do have also some frosts. We can even have frosts during this time also.
So that's kind of important for the trees because they sort of take that time to be dormant, right?
Exactly.
And to pick more nitrogen from
the chill hours are important for the rest of the crops. Okay, and when we look at most of the tree fruits, except from the citrus. And the avocados, if we go to the Algarve, they have a little bit with the sea influence. The temperatures, they don't get that much low.
We actually, where we are, we get a slight influence still from the coast. So we're in zone 10B, and I think Beja is 10A.
Exactly.
We just get that little bit of mildness from. Although we still, because we're quite low down, we seem to get a bit of frost.
So and obviously there are some technical challenges that we are dealing with. This is the reason why we are now having technical discussions regarding new varieties that we don't need that much chill hours. But and in fact there are some people that are changing the type of cultures that they grow. I mean, nowadays they're producing wine in England, and some good wines in England. Even in Sweden, I've read that in Sweden they're also growing grapes. So things are changing. And obviously we will have to deal with it, and we will have to adapt. But trees are trees, and trees they take a little bit longer to adapt, and this will hurt. Okay, this is challenging, and it will be difficult.
Well, it's certainly an investment because with a tree, you're committed. Once you've planted that tree, you have to calculate the returns, and not going to come in maybe for 1 or 2 years or 3 years in terms of olives. And you really don't want to have to come to a situation where you have to rip all those trees out and start again with another product, with another.
Exactly.
So it's a commitment, and you really have to it's a risk.
It is, and we have to calculate the risk. I mean, obviously, well, as I was saying, I was not a detractor. Well, obviously, the olives, they've been here for quite a long, and they are very successful, and they're part of their culture. I really love the olive oil. My grandfather was from Mora. That was one of the birthplaces. Well, the place for the best olive oil here in the Alentejo, and probably here in Portugal. But in fact, it's a tree. It's a supernatural tree. It's very resistant. It's very tolerant, and it's very well adapted. It doesn't suffer that much with climate change because it has it does well, the leaves are permanent, so it doesn't drop the leaves, and it's been obviously, well, we've been seeing differences in the way that we plant it. Also, it's important to demystify this, okay? Because we're talking about high intensity plantations. And this high intensity was is meant because we are putting more trees per hectare, okay? But if we think about one of the most visited landscapes that we go and to contemplate, it's the wine landscapes. For example, in Douro, okay, that was the first area of the wine from the region for Oporto. It was the first area that was being marked as a region that from a specific type of Oporto wine that was back 500 years ago. It is a man-made landscape where they're putting the vines every 50 centimeters. So it's an high intensity plantation. Just because we changed the way that we grow the olives, and even for apples, it's the same thing. So we're putting more trees, and we're putting it's usually we put it more with the different technology. Usually this is with rootstocks. So we put, it's a smaller tree, but it's a more efficient tree. And it doesn't cause us more impact than the other ones on the soil, or it doesn't need to consume more water or be less efficient in terms of other things. I mean, you can harm both ways in with high intensity in the plantation or with low intensity in the plantation. So it's not the intensity of the plantations that does the good practices or the bad practices. Okay, we're just not used to the type of landscape. Okay, obviously the way that we deal with the soil preparation and all that, obviously we can argue on what are good practices, what are not good practices, cover crops, no cover crops. So there are a lot of practices involved, but it's not putting more plants in the soil that it's per se a bad practice. This is just something that we, and also one other thing, it's for example, it's been a big deal, the avocados growing especially in the Algarve. Well, there's a big buzz because of the water shortage and all that. But the water usage of avocados, it's exactly the same as citrus, okay? But it's way more profitable. And farmers, well, this is an economical, I mean, we need as everyone else, I mean, we need to survive on that. This is the way that we deal with it. We need to pursue the yields, and we need to pursue also profit, obviously. So the culture per se, it's not a bad culture. Obviously, if we there's a big pressure on the land itself. And if they're expanding to some other lands that were not supposed to be irrigated, that's a bad thing. But it's not because of the avocados. Okay, so we need to be careful on what we do, because we don't need to demonize the cultures per se. Okay, it's the same thing with eucalyptus. Okay, eucalyptus, it's being a very poor thing. I mean, obviously, what we need to think and what we need to address politically, it's where we want to put what. Okay, obviously, if we grow a monoculture everywhere, and if we do not diversify the landscape and crops, there are risks associated. And also there is an erosion of the landscape and some other things that need to be concerned and addressed when we're doing very big portions of just one crop. But obviously this is not because of the crop. Okay, this is not the crop. It's not bad for itself. This is something that we need to think in a different way. But well, I got lost.
No, I fully agree. It's like it's important to create a balance. It's unreasonable to think that you can either have no impact on the land or you can have impact on the land, and really, it's not reasonable to think that anybody is never going to grow anything and we just let everything go to nature, because that wouldn't actually work.
Yeah.
I think to get that balance, and having, like you have here, you have a plantation of pomegranate, you have a plantation of almonds, and you also have the cork forests there. You have like a diversity of what's going on here.
And I have the sheep from the neighbor coming during the winter, and this integration, obviously, nowadays there is a big buzz also regarding what we call, that is now called regenerative agriculture.
That's one thing I wanted to ask you. I had that in my mind to ask you earlier. What is the difference between organic and regenerative?
So organic, well, in a simplified way, it means that you cannot put organic, or you cannot put synthetic fertilizers or synthetic products on it. Okay, so regenerative agriculture, it's way more connected to the way that you deal with the soil, and it's very connected with the idea that you need to recover the soil and put it in healthier than it was before. That means that you can use some products, synthetic fertilizers or synthetic products, when you need to use them, but it's based on what we call conservative agriculture regarding the soil management, meaning that you need to have cover crops, you need to integrate animals as possible. Well, before we had the Bosch technology. This is the guys that developed the nitrogen coming from fossil fuels. Okay, so the nitrogen that was developed in the Second World War. The most of the nutrients were coming from manure. Okay, so but nowadays, in the last 70 years, we totally forgot to integrate, because since we had I will say that it's a cheap fertilizer coming from a synthetic product. We forgot that we could also integrate animals. Okay, and that's the type of thinking now. The circular economy. It makes sense in this way. And it's always this type of practices they've been using. They are used in Africa, like we were talking. They're pretty ingenious in the way that they deal with this type of things, and in fact they are good practices. Okay, and so regenerative agriculture, in this sense, it's focused on the soil, on the good practices in the integration of soil coverage, animals, and rotation. It's basically it, and this is what we're trying to do here. So we're trying to integrate practices that we have also from the organic model, for example, the hedgerows. The hedgerows, because we try to increase the natural predation of insects that can be harmful, and this way we're trying to increase the as much as possible the biodiversity, especially obviously the good biodiversity, well, the mealybugs and all that type of insects that we know that help against our most of our diseases that we have in our crops. So
I also noticed you have a lot of bees.
Bees, bees. Obviously, they are very important for the natural pollination.
And the bees here that you have, do you have somebody who comes in and I know in California, for example, they don't have many bees, so it's quite a good business that people have beehives and they go around the different farms leaving their beehives.
Here it's
you don't
it's
need
not
it
it's not the same. It's not the same scale, because in California, all their varieties, they need bees. Here we need less bees because our varieties are self-pollinated.
Okay.
So for example, they need at least 5 to 7 hives per hectare. Here we need 2-3 hives per hectare. And but in fact, they are bringing to California hives from the East Coast, so they travel by truck that far to bring the hives to California. It's a big business.
Yeah.
Here we are lucky, we have hives close by, and we work with neighbors. Obviously, we have to pay them because they have their own work, but we try to work locally with local farmers, local beekeepers that can bring the bees here. But obviously, what we're trying to do with planting the edges and promoting the flowering from different types of plants all year round, so that we can bring natural bees and natural pollinizers so that they can settle and stay here. Obviously, what we also try to do is that we spray edges as much. We try not to spray with any type of pesticide, because we want to have the insects here. The same thing with spiders. We want spiders because spiders, they eat mites. So we're trying to promote this good biodiversity, so to control. And we also put some bat nests, because we want to promote the bats, because they eat a lot of flies and a lot of insects.
Mosquitoes as well, apparently.
Yeah, mosquitoes. So we're trying to promote as much as possible this auxiliary fauna, that it helps a lot. And we're trying to increase the organic matter in the soil. And then for this reason, we have also the sheep coming for grazing. We are trying to promote as much as possible the practices so that we can have soil coverage all year round. Because we are trying as much as possible to work with the microbiome in the soil. We're trying to increase the organic microbiome in the soil, so that we are not using that much fertilizers coming from the outside. Okay, that's basically what we're trying to do.
I saw some. Just speaking from my own experience with that small piece of land, like I tried to, I did a lot of experimentation. There was one area which I dissed quite a lot, because just to turn it over, and then there was another area I did like a minimum till, hardly touched it at all, and I put a lot of organic matter on one, and I put some green manure on another, and another strip I just left sort of open. I didn't actually put any cover crop on it whatsoever. And what I noticed was, in the summertime, it was a big difference in how hard the soil, because we were quite clay, and it was like the surface was like a clay pot. There was and then the other areas which I had a lot of organic matter, and I did a lot of minimum till when we'd have rain. It seemed to absorb the water really nicely, and the pot the clay pot literally was like a clay pot and just held big puddles of water. The water wasn't seeping into the land.
Yeah.
And therefore seeping into it's just small strips of experimentation you can see.
See, one of the main things that that's in the background, and it's the basis for regenerative agriculture. We want the soil to work as a sponge regarding the amount of water that you can absorb. Because what's happening is that we are losing huge amounts of soil because we are using very high horsepower. We are using a lot of power to harrow and to disc, and so in fact we're having problems the way that we deal with that. So in fact you can create a it's like you were saying, you'll create a thick layer on top of the soil that will not that will enable the infiltration of the water. And in fact, when we have this type of phenomena that we have now, that we have a huge amount of water in such a small amount of time, then you have a huge runoff of the minerals on the soil. So we have a huge problem. In fact, there are some theories, and backed in science, there is a guy that wrote, it's a pretty alarmist claim, but in fact it sticks to our mind. He's telling that in some areas we only have 60 more crops because
some parts of the US where they intensively grow corn. Basically, when it rains, it just flushes.
Exactly.
They don't have any of the microbiome and the mycelia, which is growing in that top layer, and I can't remember what the name of the little the things are that actually create the nitrogen and stuff in the soil.
Mycorrhiza.
Yeah, the little microorganisms. I can't remember what they're called. Little worms. And I think that comes to the whole point of you don't, especially here in Portugal, when you have a big plow that goes down and you literally take up all of residue material and you just get rid of it all, and then the sun is baking that soil. You can imagine it's not good for the microbiology.
Exactly. So
to maintain those habitats.
So in Trevo, and now no, this is not my part from being a farmer here, but in Trevo, it's a company, a consultancy, and we do work regarding forestry and agro-silvopasture systems, namely montado. Okay, so in the montado, one of the big problems that we've been seeing, and there's a lot of dead trees because of the practices that we've been doing in the montado, basically putting a lot of discs and arrows so that we can graze, especially with cattle. Okay, so a big amount of cattle in the montado. So basically we are destroying the roots on the trees, on the cork oaks and on the almond oaks. So we have to revert the way that we these practices, especially because in dry years, there's science backing this. We know that 80% of the roots of the trees are in the first 20 centimeters.
Wow.
Okay. So when we do this type of practices, namely disking or airing, we're destroying these roots. So in dry years, the trees, they just
don't get enough water.
They die of drought. So we've been involved in several projects, demonstration projects of different type of practices for managing the weeds, namely for shrubs, because obviously in the montado there are not only two extracts, not only the trees and in the grazing area, you also have the shrubs. In the shrubs, people don't like the shrubs, even though that they have their well, in nature they're important also, but people try to get rid of the shrubs, and usually that's one of the reasons why we put the disc airing. But that's also policy. Okay, we have to work with the and there are now new policies, namely regarding the carbon credits can also help on this. Okay, we can pay a little bit maybe there's an incentive, an economic incentive to preserve the shrubs because they conserve the organic matter in the soil. Okay, so there are new incentives and new methodologies, so that things can be different, change can be different in the way that we manage it. But obviously, what we need to have in mind is that we need to have the soil and to take care of the soil to work as a sponge, and it will only work as a sponge if it's covered. Okay, so we need to work on that. So no tilling practices, cover crops, that's really really important because we decrease evapotranspiration, we increase the coverage, exactly, and we increase the microbiology on the soil. So obviously there are some challenges, okay, namely there is competition also for some resources, and there is competition also for in certain parts for water. Okay, so even cover crops, we need cover crops, they need to be managed. Okay, we need depending on the type of seeds that you have on the cover crop, maybe you need to improve the certain types of varieties of cover crops in terms of other, because of competition with the trees and so on. So, but this is new science coming. The main principle is this: we need to have soil coverage, we need to have diversity. In the end, we cannot put all the eggs in the same basket. This is something that we need also to address. But back in the days when we were farming, this was the way it is.
Yeah.
But so
it's almost like a revision. Like modern farming is almost like a revision of old farming, but from a more scientific approach, and realizing that from the research that the old ways were sometimes the best ways.
Yeah,
and it's bringing that into the future and to see how does it work, and modernizing it basically.
Yeah, of course that we need for the well, agriculture. It's been responsible for a big, well, for the majority of the work of manpower all over. Well, in the third world, it's still kind of close to 40 to 50% of the work. It's still in agriculture. Okay, so things changed a lot in the last 50 years with tractors, with technology for the fertilization and all that. So nowadays we have like in the Western world, in Europe or in the US, well, we have close to 2%, 1.5% of the manpower in agriculture. It's not significant. Obviously, this is an area we also need robotization. We also need we also need a lot of technology, and it's happening. I mean, like in every other economical activity, it's happening, and it's happening big time. So technology, it's getting here and very fast, and not only in big farms, okay, because in fact there's been some work done by associations, and there's information is flowing. Okay, well, social media is working on the brighter way and the good side also for the dissemination of good practices also. Okay, so but in fact in the last 10 years, drones, satellite imaging, they've been implemented, GPS or and the self-driven tractors will be here very soon.
Yeah, it's a socio-political thing, because you definitely notice here in this area of Alentejo, you have a lot of in the past, a lot of the youth would move away from the Alentejo, maybe move into the cities. They would go to university, they would study, and a lot of them never returned. And there was a lot of I still think there's a lot of jobs here, but a lot of the jobs is in fruit picking or maintaining the woods and stuff. So there's actually a case where you see a lot of immigrant workers that come to Portugal or to this area, and therefore it actually affects the way that the town is, the way how people feel. You have a different culture that comes. Um, it's not good or not bad, but I know that from my wife Rita's perspective, she can be alone in the month. I probably shouldn't say that on publicly, but she worries about not just a group of Indian men, but a large group of men which are laboring workers. It can be like 50 or so in the olive farms near us, and she feels it insecure in many ways with that. It's not particularly because it's Indian people or it could be any nationality. She thinks it's just a large group of men, and it feels as a lone woman. It's scary, and I think it's the picture. And do you think like technology is going to enable us to have that labor availability, or
well, this is
or can we attract people back from the cities and bring families back into the Alentejo, onto the Montes, and see it that way?
If it wasn't for the Alqueva project and water coming, I was not here also. So if we have the chance, if we have the water, if we have the conditions to work, there's a lot of work to do here regarding innovation, technology, and fruit production. Things are way different, and we can see it. Well, if you see it, even the olive sector. Well, 15 years ago, there were not that many people planting high intensity, okay, on edge. Nowadays, with the machinery, that big machines that go and pick the olives. Nowadays nobody's planting the old way, like with 400 hectares trees per hectare. Now they're planting like close to 2,000 plants per hectare. Obviously, the cost for the machine for the it's like a it's like a it's 10 times higher in the with the other, the vibration machine, with the people with the sticks hitting on the tree. So obviously the model was driven to the mechanization of the culture, and we will have solutions, and it's going fast for most of the crops. You can see that, for example, for cereals, it's very potent and very technological tractors with the GPSs, and there's a lot of technology now involved in most of this machinery. Okay, so most of the workers now, they need to work with GPS, with different types of sprayers that are also operated by computer. So there is technology involved, even the drones, even so there's a lot of technification. Okay, so the new workers for agriculture, they're also technical, most of it. But obviously there are still a lot of manpower that we need. So, for example, here for the fruit picking, I still don't, and I don't have robots to pick the fruit. So I need, in the peak season, I have 50 people coming here, and most of them are obviously immigrant. But this is happening here. This is happening all over in the Western world. Okay,
yeah, is it just because that? Is it because that because there is unemployment in Portugal? Is it because people don't want to move from the city back and do fruit picking, or It's simply because the conditions, or it's too hard work.
Yeah, it's seasonal work, it's hard work, and
Mm.
people don't want. I mean, when we see at the data, well, they're not talking about 6.2 unemployment rate. It's quite low.
Mm.
But obviously the numbers, if we look at it in a different way, in different angles, they are always different. But anyway, but you don't get young people to come and pick the fruit. And in fact, you don't see that many people, even locals, here close by. I mean, people at a certain age that could be coming here and to fruit picking. No, they're not coming because it's tough. Because it's the fruit, the trees. They have spikes. They pinch you. We are when we. It's tough. I mean, picking fruit. It's not very easy. It's still tough, and most of the people don't want to do it. That's the way I see it. Even though that we pay a way, I won't say close to 2 times the minimum salary.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, the price of labor, it's the same that we have in economies that are way more developed in the way that the minimum wage is higher than ours. Like Italy, we're paying the same wage as Italy for farming, and the same wage as Spain for farming. So, and this is the way that we have to retain some people to work, or else they wouldn't be here. So, and we definitely need them.
Yeah.
So this is a sector that we are very needy for manpower, and if it weren't for immigrants, that will be a disaster.
I mean, it's
Okay.
a kind of it's a sort of idea of the European Union that you have that free movement of peoples to go where the work is. So, I know when we do jujitsu, we have a couple of guys there they're from Moldova, and they do a lot of the planting and picking and things like that. They organize a lot of teams. I know nearer to us in the tomatoes, they have a lot of former Eastern Europeans. Yeah, I think me personally, I've always respect the people when they, if you're where you are living, if you're not able to earn money, you should pack your bag and go somewhere where you can earn some money. And
Definitely.
I think that should be a
No, and then nowadays we have some of them. Obviously, that this is seasonal work. Okay, most of it in peak season. We have a lot of people, but then when we're not on peak season, we don't need that many people. But over the years, we've been hiring permanent employees from nowadays we have one from Venezuela. We have 2 from Morocco, permanently here. So this is the way it is. I mean, farming, construction, tourism. We are very, very, very dependent on immigrant work. And even with this technology that we will be able to use in the future, but we will still need them to work. And this is something that we need to address. And because it's the way it is. This is our we're getting old as a country. I mean,
I think the birth rate is 1.6 or something like that. It's pretty low,
Exactly. We have to be able to, and we've seen there are a lot of data telling that countries that can actually attract immigrants, they are the economies that really develop.
Yeah.
Obviously, we need rules. We need to do a lot of work as a society to integrate these people. There's a lot of work to do, and as an entrepreneur and as a company, we need to give them formation. We need to retain them.
Yeah.
And that's something that we will need to deal with in the next couple of years. But it's been challenging.
Yeah.
For one of the main things that we've been hurting us hurting in the sense that it's stressing us as farmers. It's the lack of labor.
Yeah.
It's the lack of labor. It's that it's that we are not able to retain people because they don't stay that longer. And so there's a lot of work to do as a society in general. I mean, so the companies, the government, and we need to rethink the way that we integrate these people. I mean, because obviously when we think about, well, the Portuguese, we were also immigrants back in the 60s and in the 70s. There was a huge amount of people going outside to work in agriculture, obviously also in Switzerland, in France, all over. Okay, so we need to take a good to think about it, and
it's definitely becoming a politically hot topic.
Definitely,
in the US,
everywhere in Europe.
You see a lot of in Germany and many places. It's becoming almost a crazy political debate, and it's not based in any reality. It's based a lot in emotion and
definitely.
And I think there's a lot of fear mongering probably from the media. It's an interest. Last couple of days ago, I interviewed Tim Vieira. His podcast is going to come out tomorrow, which will be obviously it'll be out when this becomes live. And he's running for president of Portugal. So it's one of the questions that I need to ask him, and he's as president of Portugal, what can you do to help this area of the Alentejo? What do we need in here? You were talking about labor, conditions for. Well, it's already whatever powers that be enabled the Alqueva project. Obviously, made a huge impact on this area. But as the future of agriculture in Portugal and in particular this area, what could the president of Portugal, or what sort of person could he put on his team that's going to be a spokesperson for this area, and what ideas do you think?
Well, obviously we are dealing with areas that are suffering from human erosion. I mean, people are going out. We are going to the littoral areas. So we get less and less people here, and obviously you get a degradation from the institutions that are here. For example, hospitals, schools, and all that. That's what concerns me, because I came back. I returned to Beja with my to grow a family here, and I have my personal and professional project here. But I do see it as a challenge to keep people here. And obviously the ones that are coming here, it's the immigrants that are flowing here. And like we were saying, we need them, okay? But we need to integrate them. This is one of the main challenges. It's that we need to have a policy that helps to integrate these people. Because obviously we need them here. And we've had some successful examples in some areas. Okay, in fact, there is a council. There's in Idanha where they do have social projects for the integration of immigrants, in agricultural project also. So it's an integrated project in with the government, with the local authorities, and with the and also with entrepreneurs, and it's interesting. So we have good models, and also we've had also an area here close by to Beja, in Odmira, that has been in the news, especially for bad things, obviously, because it's an area where there are a lot of farms that need a lot of manpower. Basically, they were the first ones to integrate a lot of people that they needed because they didn't add people from elsewhere. So obviously, they've had problems because of several things that was in the news that back then, lack of conditions for living and social problems connected with labor. But anyway, it's been now like 20 years since those companies are there, and if you go there and now you see that the men that you were telling that were the only ones, obviously the first, when you see immigration, there's a pattern. Obviously the men go first and then they start bringing their families, and this is what is going on now in Santo Antonio and other lands like close to Odmira. And now you see a lot of families. Now you see a lot of different nationalities from people, and you see that they are now integrated and living there. Obviously, it was difficult. It's been hard, and you see some degradation in the social tissue. But they are the ones that live there. So we will have to seek a balance. We will have to seek a balance. But I definitely see as the solution for immigration, especially here in the interior, as one of the obvious solutions for the problem that we have.
So if I could say to some of the listeners out there, they might be thinking of moving to Portugal. They might be a young couple or a young family. So really, they could set up, move to Alentejo region. They would pretty much guaranteed to have double minimum wage for at least some seasonal work here. Out of seasonal work, we can talk about some different opportunities, that maybe some ideas. So it could be quite an attractive prospect for families to move here from all over Europe and from even internationally.
We've had some in the last couple of years, especially since 2008, where there was that big with Lehman Brothers, that big crash. There was a phenomenon also connected to the new people that were coming to farm. Because obviously you had the internet, you had the possibility to still be connected, and nowadays also after the COVID, with all this social acceptance of the working over with Zoom or some other or with some other programs that can keep you connected to the world. There've been several families or projects from people coming from different parts of the world coming to this area of Alentejo. Why? Because it's pretty much central. I mean, you're close to the sea, you're close to Lisbon, you're close to the Algarve, and even here you're close to Seville. So you have plenty of space. Okay, meaning this is a landscape that gives you freedom because it's a landscape that it's
there's no traffic.
Exactly, there's no traffic. Yeah. And so there are definitely some opportunities regarding that.
Well, I think also, but I'll give you an example. If I worked, I lived on a farm in Cornwall when I was younger. Worked as a sheep farmer, and it was always a little bit of a dream of mine to own my own farm. I didn't have, and none of my family were farmers, so of course I was never going to inherit a farm. So it was a case of having to buy a farm, and I didn't have a spare £2 million lying around for a few hectares. But here, managed to save a little bit of money, and I was able to buy a very small farm. and that is and a farm because of the conditions and the climate, and I have the water there from Rochu. Um, Conditions which are very easy for me to grow, and I have a lot of good sunlight
Yeah,
and
definitely. Definitely, the price of the land it's still cheap compared to Spain and a little in France or so in Western Europe, it's still the cheapest land that you can buy. And that was obviously the reason why we had all this investment being done in the last few years, obviously, because the investors and big investments funds and whatever they were coming here because of that, okay, because the land was cheap. Now the prices are increasing, the pressure is increasing, obviously, but it's still cheap compared to the options. And obviously we have this Atlantic influence, but also Mediterranean influence. And regarding some fruits, regarding some specific things that we have really good options, we have really good conditions to grow. Okay, so this is still a land of opportunities, and I do think that we will have bigger opportunities now with with the infrastructure that is getting a little bit better. Okay, because obviously Alqueva was the first step. So now we have the production, and now with the production, we will have also the factories, so the mills, the olive mills, the also regarding regarding the food sector, there are some new projects also going on for agro industry. So things are getting better, and also obviously the connection now with roads and all that. We also so it's getting better. And obviously the chance that we have nowadays to work and be connected to the world, being in a farm, it's
you don't just have to do one thing. Like I like to do several different things. I'm never going to make enough money as a farmer, but I save money by growing my own food, and the sheer enjoyment factor. I do this podcast, I do the surf coaching, I do a few other little things, and it's nice because it keeps life exciting.
exactly.
And with Starlink internet, it's completely. I'm connected to everything. 40-minute drive. I'm connected to pretty much everything. Soon, hopefully, we'll have Beja Airport.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm still hoping for that one. But even so, it's just a quick drive down the road, an hour and 20 minutes to Faro Airport from my house, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, I think that there are some people that will try to get an option to Starlink for political reasons.
Yeah,
But
let's see. Yeah,
yeah,
at the moment, it's like the original Uber and the original
yeah,
Airbnb, but I'm sure there's going to be some
yeah. But
restrictions. It's too easy, basically.
no, it
It's
works and it
too
works well.
easy,
But
and
it
it
works well.
works.
But
It works 10 times better than any other system I would have, and it's too good, and I'm sure it's gonna be.
no, I just heard from a client. He's a guy. He just bought a farm here close by in Serpa. He even works for the Swiss embassy. And he was telling me, I don't want to I don't want to be a client of Elon Musk. So he was getting the internet on not on the satellite but on some others. So he was pulling the net from a wire just because of that.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, yeah, but as you were saying, obviously farming can be very intensive in some particular seasons, but it also gives you freedom in some other seasons. So I'm also a farmer, but I work as a consultant, and I also have some other stuff that I like to do. But obviously, in the peak seasons, I'm very connected here. But obviously nowadays, I mean, we are pruning and doing stuff that we need to do during the winter time. But it's different. It's totally different. It's not. It's not, even though this is a different scale, and obviously I have people working with me in this farm, but obviously that farming is it's a very emotional kind of economical activity. Okay, so obviously we are very connected to the land. Obviously we have our roots and we're talking about roots, see how much we are connected to the land. But obviously we have is this sense that we have, that we like to have our own land and plant our own trees and give sense to, and give some meaning to a personal, and even giving a sense to our life, and even something that we can leave to our children. It's a very emotional thing. But in the end, we need to make money out of it. I mean, at least, I mean, this is something that we're putting money, and like we were saying, most of us, we don't have £2 million to put on. There are several people that have, and they've been doing
But they don't want to farm.
Oh, I mean,
They're
if you
too
look
busy.
at there are several projects for wine that it's a passion business.
Yeah, yeah.
There are different kind of business in agriculture. They're coming. Obviously they need a little bit of a rationale, but they are very emotional. The wine business, it's pretty much like this. But in the end, we need to pay our bills, right? So we need to do our calculations, and we need to look it up, and have the right people, and do a good benchmark and of what we want to do, and be really realistic on the activity, because it's very high risk.
Yeah.
It's very high risk. So but in the end of the day, it's we're working with nature more and more. This is what we've also been telling of regenerative. So we're trying to not work against nature, but working with nature. We're trying to mimetize nature more and more. That's what we're trying to do technically. So and it's a cycle. I mean, the it's a regrowth every year. It's new hopes and dreams, and this is the year that we're gonna have a really big crop and really good product, and this is the way it is, and it's a rebirth every year, like the nature, right? So now we're in the winter, then it's the spring, and then we see the fruits every time. So there's a big passion on it.
I definitely realize from being a farmer now, I think of things in terms of years and several years, and I think of things in my time in terms of seasons. And last season was like that, so I need to prepare this season like this, and it's a different thought process than I used to have before. It's a nice thought process, you know. I start to think more in a long-term strategy of things, which is quite interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, well, what we're not trying to do, it's what we try to integrate the farming side, or also on the a little bit on the tourism, and we're trying to brand directly some of the stuff that we produce, namely the juice for pomegranates, the arrows, because people don't like to peel the pomegranates because you can't.
Yeah, my
the
grandma used
stains.
to cut it in half, and she used to give me a toothpick, a pilito de dente, and I used to sit there in front of the TV with picking the little seeds out and eat.
Yeah, but there are some techniques for taking out the seeds, and but in fact it's not easy, and you need to be patient. But in fact there is machinery. Not well, there is machinery, and nowadays for example, we are now selling a big part of our production to England. In England, they have a big tradition of pomegranate for pomegranates for several reasons. One of them, it was very very connected to the coal industry, and people basically they were eating the pomegranates because of the disintoxication of the because of the coaling, because of the lungs, because they were working on the mines. And also, obviously, because they have because you guys have a big community from Asia, and there's a lot of also connection for the consumption for the Indian community and all that. So the market for the de-seed pomegranate, so we see in small cups. And also because of your habits of consumption, also because you tend to go, especially in London or you go to the supermarkets and you pick the lunch over there in the supermarket, and then you go to the office. It's not
Okay.
like the Latin way that we go and sit in the table and we're well.
It's like
not
eating whilst you're walking.
exactly. And also because of the salads, the ready-to-eat salads. So we are now working a lot on with this type of clients that they're using it for ready-to-eat. But we wanted to market it all ourselves also, and we're trying to do a pretty nitty kind of a van so that we can promote our own juice and our own stuff.
That's super interesting. So you're gonna bottle your own juice of pomegranate juice.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. And then I've been traveling and seeing different stuff. You know what? There's, you know that before the grapes, the juice of pomegranates, there is a registration of that it was wine was being made out of pomegranates 6,000 years before. In fact, it was 6,000 years before Christ. So it was before doing wine from grapes. And especially in the Caucasus, close to Iran, Armenia, Georgia, there is a big tradition of with pomegranate wines. And I've been tasting in California. They also have a couple of good wines over there. It's interesting. But nowadays, you know what? I've been also looking. There's a huge fashion about non-alcoholic drinks, complex drinks that people like to have in a meal,
like mixers or
but non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
And that could also be interesting because the pomegranate juice, depending on the variety, you have different varieties that the Latins, we like sweet fruit. But the Nordic people, they like the acidity in the fruit. Yeah, they like the tart. So the juice from the tart varieties, it's pretty intense and complex. And could be kind of it looks like a wine.
Slightly with a bit of carbonation or something.
Exactly. There are some interesting drinks that are, in fact, being developed. And we were talking about kombuchas and some other fermented drinks. But in the end, I'm, like I was telling you previously, I'm more nowadays that I've been passed by all that and I've been looking but not doing anything. But the simpler, if I've been recently traveling in Morocco, and the simplicity that they just press it and they sell it in the street and they just market the advantages of the fruit and all that, and it really works.
It's better as well. It's fresher. It's
and in fact in Istanbul and in the Maghreb, it's really common. And it's not only the tourists that go there and grab it. You can see the locals, and they go there and they go and pick the juice. So definitely, this is something that we are now trying to address. And let's see.
That could be. I just had a little vision in my head of something like because we were talking about manufacturing the juice and squeezing it, and then you have the conditions of preservation. How do you bottle it? How do you keep it with a long shelf life? And so that gets very complex, and it also gets costly. And you were talking about nicely with your travels to Morocco and to Turkey, how they were just literally cutting the fruit, juicing it there and then somebody would literally buy that fresh juice. To have like a trailer or a fleet of small minivans all branded nicely going to all the beaches around Portugal in the car with literally some kind of machine that juices it right then.
Yeah, there are specific juice machines for because the peel, it's strong of the pomegranate, so you need to have a specific. Yeah, but we have those machines. And it's something that we need to start working, not only thinking, because we've been thinking for
the type of model always seems to work very well. I know in the UK, like taking the produce direct to the market, direct to the retailer, it seems to work. You cut out so much of the middleman and actually a lot of the bureaucracy, maybe you cut out as well, a lot of the regulation and that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is.
some of it's definitely challenging
Mm.
because well, I'm a farmer. In the end of the day, I'm a farmer. Okay, I've had the chance to go and travel and see the world and see some other places, and I have a higher education. I was studying and all that, but in the end of the day, you need to have some capacity to do the marketing, and because it's a totally different deal. Okay,
Mm.
it's a new business, the marketing by itself. But in fact, but in fact, there are some very nice examples of farms that they have their own farm store, and in fact, there is a very nice example in the UK. But
Mm.
obviously,
You're
um,
talking about Jeremy Clarkson.
Jeremy
Yeah, yeah,
Clarkson.
yeah.
It's a very good example, and this
Yeah,
show it's very nice. I do believe that this show has done a lot for the communication of agriculture,
yeah.
because in the end of the day, he's a clever guy and he's very funny.
Mm. It
But in
shows
the
how
end,
hard it is
exactly
to turn a
because
profit.
of the rain. Now I had rains. Now I lost
When
money.
when to
Now I'm
cut the
having
wheat, when to harvest,
e-
the moisture content just has to be a little bit
exactly
wrong.
exactly.
Mm.
But in the end of the day, um, he gets to sell his own product in his farm, and it's interesting because when he was farming and he was seeing the margins, and he was saying, no, I need to sell, I need to do some other stuff, and that's pretty much what we're trying to do. I
Mm.
mean, you have two ways, or even you specialize in just one crop, but that's you increase the risk, and or you can do different stuff and you integrate and you try to go with this type of more sustainable practices, and you do it in a different way, and you go through the market, and then and you try to sell it on your own. It's interesting. Obviously there's a hard work. It's a in the but it's interesting.
It takes investment as well. I mean,
Definitely,
you have to have that business plan. You need Shark Tank.
definitely,
You need to make that presentation, and you need to sell that idea. And I think there are some possibilities with really good, strong branding.
definitely,
Um,
definitely. But here in Portugal, we don't have that many. The farmers market, it's not you can see it in the US. I've seen very very nice the way, because well, this is obviously the way that they communicate, the way that they are driven to the market and to the selling. And I've seen very good examples of the way that they sell directly. You guys in the UK have, well, there are some good examples. Okay, there are some good examples here. We have a couple of good ones also. We have
mm,
Freixo do Meio. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a, well, since a very long time they have their own meat stand in the market, and they sell a lot of products, and they do organic production of several products. And so we have a couple of good examples. Yeah, but it's not,
it's difficult. I mean,
it
I've
is
looked at it because we grow a lot of lettuce, and we've been experimenting of what to grow, and how to sell it. Is there a And when I factor in the cost of transportation and then standing in a market all day trying to sell, it just doesn't pay the bill. It doesn't cover the costs. And then I'm trying to think of the shopping habits of people. Even here, like even when I think that I have more time than I do, then sometimes I don't. Like it's much easier just to go to the supermarket, pick up your bits and pieces, and you load the car, and then it's done. I would love to have the time to go to the market, to go to a farm shop, to go to a butcher, but we simply don't these days.
yeah,
It's very
definitely,
hard to find.
definitely.
Try to find the consumer habits to see if. I think in the Algarve now they've started doing food box deliveries of vegetables,
Mhm.
but even then you have. Well, now they don't have the tolls on the A22 anymore. That helps. But for me to drive from here to the Algarve to deliver food boxes would just be crazy. It wouldn't make any
Yeah.
economic sense.
During COVID, We had several projects like that, well, for food distribution at home, and but then the economics, they were, most of them, they don't work.
Yeah.
So, but basically, what we need a connection with the consumer. Okay, we need to work on the branding, and the farmers need to do it better. So they need to, obviously, we need to show that we produce in a sustainable way, but we need to have a good product, and you need to have a competitive product. Okay, but in the end, we are very much affected with geopolitics also. Okay, because basically we are importing food from elsewhere where they don't have that same restrictions that we have. And in the end, I'm not against it, but we just need to inform.
Yeah.
Okay,
Be
I
given a choice for the
mean, I
consumer.
just need to. Well, my pomegranate could be on the same shelf as the pomegranate coming from Turkey, but I just want to tell the consumer that this was here produced in Portugal according to this kind of legislation, and that in Turkey they don't have
You
that.
don't
I
know.
mean, they just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
And most of the supermarkets, they're not clear on that. I mean, they can pay you a little bit more
There's
in the
a little label,
supermarket.
yeah,
There's a
and
little
sometimes they'll
label.
position
Yeah, but
the apples from South Africa right next to the apples from Portugal, and then you mistakenly pick the ones from South Africa, and they're really expensive because
yeah,
they've been shipped. But I always look for the label. I always try to buy Portuguese product,
yeah, me
even
too,
if
definitely.
it's even if it's something not in season. I try, but simply from me, from a health point of view. Um, Once you pick a pomegranate, there is so much time that it has before it starts to deplete in its nutrition. So therefore, the closer you can get your pomegranate to the source, and the earliest, the more rich in nutrition the actual product is. I think that's true. So I don't want something that's been shipped over from South America to here because it's not got the same vitamin
Yeah.
content.
Definitely, the eat local makes total sense. Okay, so eat seasonal, eat local, and that's something that we need to share in schools. I mean, this is something that we farmers, we need to communicate better. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I was telling that Jeremy Clarkson did so much for agriculture, especially in the UK. Here, the people don't see that much. In fact, most of the shows that we see here regarding farmers are the who wants to marry a farmer. It's a shame. It's a I well, but in fact, we need, as a sector, we need to communicate better. We are also things are changing. Okay, there are some now associations, some particular farmers that they communicate. They are connected to some social media, but still, but communicating brands, for example, in fruits, it's very difficult, mainly because here the operators, the supermarkets, they have a lot of power. They don't want your brand over there.
Yeah.
They don't want your brand. They don't help you to have your brand. And in fact, here in Portugal, we have 70% of our consumption of legumes and fruits coming from supermarkets. So here, I don't sell to markets because this is a big.
I couldn't tell you one fruit and vegetable brand. Maybe Fruity Corp. Maybe Fruity Corp.
No, Valderosa for the grapes.
Yeah,
but
Valderosa.
Internationally, Zespri, the kiwis. It's a really big company. The kiwis from New Zealand, Zespri. So it's a company that maybe more than 30 years, and their brand, it's a global brand. It's a very, very, very nice company. And you have some other examples also for apples. Pink Lady, I don't know if you've seen Pink Lady. Pink Lady, it's also
so that's actually the brand, not the.
It's a brand and it's a variety. The brand is connected to the variety, but in fact, it's not easy to do it. I mean, but there's space for innovation, I believe. Okay, because especially I get very enthusiastic regarding pomegranates because we're talking about a superfruit. This is This is a bomb of antioxidants, and we just need to communicate better and give it in a way that the consumer can have it in a easier way.
I really think the supermarket could play. I'm trying to think if the consumer can to push the supermarkets into at least labeling correctly where a product.
Yeah, but the European community, they've been doing a lot of pressure regarding that. In fact, it was 1 year ago. We had a big there were big manifestations for farmers all around Europe, especially in France, because the French farmers, they are the ones that do the things that we see, that they put the tractors in close to Champs-Élysées, and they put a lot of manure in the parliament, and they do crazy stuff. But anyway, one of the things that they were pushing, and they were the ones to do it. It's they wanted the European community to be very strict with the labeling, because in fact the French, they don't consume fruits from elsewhere if they don't if they have the French fruit over there, for selling, and we don't do that much. I mean, we look at it, but we are not very strict. But there have been schemes regarding the false labeling for fruit coming from elsewhere, and in fact we need to be more strict, because we have to be loyal with the consumer, and we, in the end, we need to. I mean, I'm not conservative. I mean, people that want to buy a cheaper product from elsewhere, maybe they can buy, but they need to be informed. There should be an option, but they need to know what's the consequences for that. Okay, there's also education on that. Okay, so different products, because in fact, European community, you're now suffering, and it's now on the eyes of everyone. But one of the things it's that we have been looking to bureaucracy in a way that is not helping us. So, and we were 2 years ago, we were very ambitious, trying to take 50% of the fertilization and 50% of the total active matters or substances that we can use for farming. And we are not ready as farmers to do that still. So we will have a decrease on yields. We will have a decrease on profits, on our margins, and we will have big problems if that law was implemented, because we need to be in a path. So we need to adapt, and we need time. So I cannot, with trees, I cannot plant a tree and then this one is more adapted for organic farming and be ready in 1 year. No, it will take me 5 or 6 years to be ready. So we need a little. I do believe this is the Green Deal. It's the way to go. Definitely, but we need to go step by step, and we need to inform the consumer that if he wants to buy a better product, more nutritious, and you will have to pay a little bit more, but not too much more. But he will have to pay a little bit more. But in the same way I see it, this is and I know that you like organic. I also like organic, but I'm also a science guy, and I do take antibiotics for myself when I'm sick. So I do see some challenges, because there are products that we do know now that they are nocive, they're not good for bees, they're not good for the soil, for the microbiome, but we do also see products that are very helpful. Okay, and they are very helpful, and if they are used the right way, they are not that harmful as they tend to be, and there's when we look at the balance, they should be used. Okay. So this is, but regarding regenerative agriculture on this side, I also like it because it's not as strict as organic, but we have the technology, and if we can use it, and if we see it's safe, and if we have the proper studies that are telling us that it's safe, we can use it. Okay, so but nowadays we are way more strict in Europe that even in the US or even in Japan. We have well, for example, for almonds, I'm producing almonds, but the biggest producer of almonds in the world it's the US, and they're putting their almonds everywhere, and they have way more products that are using pesticides that they've been banned here for 10 years now. But they put their almonds here. They don't have any.
And you don't know,
restriction.
actually.
And you don't know
I'd
it.
probably be eating an almond. I didn't even know if it's where it's produced.
Yeah. So we farmers, we the associations, we the sector, we need to work on that. We need to work on that, and we need to work with everyone.
It's something like Tim was saying, like it's so important for entrepreneurs and for people wanting to invest in Portugal to have a clear roadmap, and to have I would imagine in farming is even more important because you're dealing in yearly cycles, and to have a clear roadmap of regulation is necessary in certain cases, but it's not to have regulation for 4 years, then a new government comes in, and then there's a different regulation, and then it changes again, and it creates this insecurity in any long-term planning, which is what companies need to do. They need to have a 5-year plan, or in farming probably a 10-year plan.
Regarding the activity itself, we have the regulation. It's coming from the EU.
Yeah.
So most of the regulation is coming from the EU, and we have a roadmap. So, and the roadmap was driving us on very fast for the green, on the green side. Call it like this. Like I was saying, I'm implementing a lot of stuff regarding the promotion of biodiversity, and I see myself as a guardian of a good soil, and I'm a farmer that I want to take and the activity and leave the soil better than when I started to my children. This is pretty much the concept of sustainability. But in the same time, I wanted to be fair. I mean, there are in fact some
competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I do know there are some products that are being used everywhere. I know the science behind it, and we have to be able to use it. I mean, and there's a bunch of regulation that sometimes it's not helpful at all. But coming to the European side, so regarding the activity itself for farming, what we're dealing is more concern with the European community than in the Portuguese government. The Portuguese government can be more helpful or not regarding the subsidization of the investments and so. But regarding, I mean, the route for the production of almonds or for olives, or you basically know what are the products that you can use, the where you can plant, where you cannot plant. So
all that decision is made.
Yeah, even if the government is going to be different, I mean, most of the things okay.
So that gives
the next government can tell you that you can maybe use less water, maybe, but at least regarding the main frame for the technological part, you will know. Okay.
Okay.
But we'll see. It's now a challenging time. I mean, I don't know what to expect now from the Trump administration regarding tariffs, but sometimes good stuff can also come. Okay, protectionism usually it's not good for everyone because the prices will increase. But we are now seeing that we will have to have our own production.
Well,
Okay.
I kind of see, particularly in farming, maybe in food production, it's a good thing that things are a little bit more local.
Yeah.
And we can proudly now say that local for us is the EU. So we have a big market here.
Yeah, it is in fact.
If we don't have to ship things across the Atlantic, I'm not sure if that's going to be a good or bad thing. And imagine the US is a little bit like the EU. They can produce all of their own things. Um, Global economics has been a successful model for a long time. But things are changing. China is a huge market. It is interesting times, and I think there's that protectionism is going to create some new opportunities. Always new opportunities, I think, come
Coming from
from interesting circumstances.
exactly.
But
So it's we will see. Things are changing very fast. This is in fact the technology and the AI is impacting the activity a lot. So things regarding the knowledge, they are also, for example, now when we're doing fertilization plans or when we're looking to soil data, it's a brave new world because we can now optimize the fertilization program way faster, and this is not we will have this is going to be a big leap now regarding the utilization of knowledge also in farming, and we will look at it in a different way. But it's interesting because we see big tech now interested in also in farming. Google, they are developing a lot of technology, and they even have a startup devoted to this type of subjects. The robotics, those companies, it's not only for the military; they're also very connected to the developing of robots and drones for agriculture. So interesting times are coming.
yeah, I mean RFK. I was watching one of those podcasts that you recommended that I listened to with John Kemp.
Mm-hmm,
He was
mm-hmm.
interviewing Robert Kennedy Jr. And he actually has he's very supportive of regenerative farming and particularly nutrition and what you put into your body. So in that case, maybe that's going to be quite a good thing. And I think he actually admires the EU and in many ways of how about food production. So it could be good in that way.
Could be interesting. Let's see.
Right. Okay. I think, Daniel, I think we could probably wrap it up now. I think we've covered a lot of interesting things. Is there, if somebody wants to start a farm here and invest in a farm here, is that something that you and Trevo can help them with as a consultant of what to plant or that kind of thing? Or
Sure, we've been around for 40 years now. So this was a business that was my father developing. It's been me for the last 10 years. I've been trying to do different stuff. I've been trying to integrate this new type of practices. Well, to increase what we've been talking, this type of practices that increase the organic matter and prevent soil erosion and all that. We've also been since the water came here, we've also been working with almonds and olives and these new crops that came here to Alentejo to develop on this modern type of agriculture that we're seeing now. So obviously, we are here. We are here. We are here to talk. We are here to show what we've been doing, our past, our what not to do. It's also very important because we've made a lot of mistakes. But we are farmers and we work with farmers. But also, obviously, we work with people that are not farmers but are entrepreneurs or people that want to live from the land and for the land.
Okay, so I'll leave a link definitely in the bio and how they can get in touch with you. And for me, I'm just thinking because for me, like I'm always thinking, oh, I could do that, and I'm looking around who grows what, and people were growing asparagus next to me, and I remember my grandfather being very enthusiastic about growing asparagus. The problem for me growing asparagus is if I change my mind, it's like that. It's a little bit like planting pomegranates. You can't really change your mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, fantastic, great. Really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Really, really interesting. I can talk about farming all day.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Perfect. Well done. Thank you. Over and out. If you enjoyed this episode of Podcast Portugal, please be sure to leave us a rating or a comment or a bunch of stars. It really helps the podcast gain a little bit more visibility. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, and really it helps immensely to attract more super interesting guests.
Cost of 365 per year, living on around in a muffin shop, call it a need to concentrate.